Hello everybody, we are behind the scenes at SailGP in the technical area to check out all of the teams, their equipment, boats and everything that's going on backstage. I am joined by Tom Herbert-Evans, the Youth Programme Manager for SailGP, who is going to give us all of the insight. Now, first question, Tom, is why on earth are we allowed to check all this out? Is there no secrets to have here?
All these boats are one design, so it's a bit like sailing at a laser regatta. There's nothing that's different to the other boat. So what that means is there's nothing to hide. So we've given you a little bit of a tour, gone to see the GBR boat, seen the wing shed, seen the foils, a little bit of the crashes that happened earlier this season. And yeah, really good to get your view in it and see what's going on at SailGP. People think the trampoline's kind of like the one you'll find in your back garden, but it's actually incredibly tight. You wouldn't want to fall in it actually, it would hurt. So obviously the sailors run across the trampoline from side to side. Some people don't realise it is identical on both sides, so when we go into the cockpit you'll see the wheel, the flight controller, the grinders, they're symmetrical, so there's a dual position on either side. The other really cool piece about the F50 is there's quite a sophisticated safety system. So you've got your righting lines that sit underneath in case of a capsize. And then if you look just above here, these aren't the jib sheets or the main sheets. These are actually safety tethers. So every single sailor is actually harnessed into the F50. So when you tack and jibe, you've got a climbing harness, kind of like on a dog leash. They have to run forwards and backwards with every tack and jibe. So this, some of you may know, because we had a British boat colliding into this boat. So this is when the British boat collided on the start line into the Japanese boat, and Ben was really gracious in actually lending the GBR boat to the Japanese team the next day. Unfortunately, this actually collided behind that 10-foot section, so the boat was a write-off. Actually took on water and a few other things. The other interesting thing you can see, which explains maybe why things cost more than others, in the center of the hull there's like an aluminium core, and then you've obviously got two layers of carbon, like the traditional kind of sandwich layout. Now, if you go to the foil is solid carbon fiber. It takes 12 weeks to build, and that's why it's also so expensive. So it takes multiple layers of carbon, and I think there might be some titanium in there in some circumstances. So the boat actually, comparatively to the foils, is quite cheap. It doesn't take many materials to build it. You've got this big kind of sandwich design. There's a little boat building team on both sides in a picnic tent, but this team works incredibly hard because every single board, hydrofoil, has to be basically one design sanded and prepped. So they're talking about freshwater versus saltwater. So depending on what kind of, we're normally in saltwater, so it's pretty straightforward. But they do try and finish all the foil surfaces the same. So the idea, this is more like a kind of a glider, if you like. This wants to get us up and foiling as early as possible. It's a live board, but come and have a look at the very edge. It is so sharp here. You watch the boats on the sound, you hear this like horrible screeching sound, and it just sounds like somebody's whistling. And for a long time, the broadcasters were trying to get rid of the sound. They couldn't work out what the sound was. And there's a tiny pocket of air that comes off. It's minuscule. You can barely see it. And that's creating this screeching sound. And it's called vortex shredding. And it's basically just a tiny bubble of air, and it creates a vibration. And then that's what that screaming sound is that's coming out onto the broadcast. So if you look, the guys are actually scanning to see if there's any delamination or there's any issues with the board. All good?
Oh, good.
You wouldn't believe how heavy that is, and you wouldn't be able to bend it, obviously, but they've recorded it bending up to 1.5 feet off the center. So I think in one of the events, it's quite windy, the board is out here somewhere. So in a big maneuver, we saw the most expensive component on the F50 is the board, the hydrofoil. The cheapest component on the F50 by a mile is this stuff. So this is Clysa, and it's just that again, it's like that meat packing material. And then people think that there's no mast in a wing, but there actually is. There is a D-spar section in the front end of the wing. So this is structural. So without that, the whole thing would obviously fall apart. And that wing frame we picked up, These are just much bigger wing frames that bolt onto the back of the mast, and you coat it in this Clysar material. And I think they just get a hairdryer and heat shrink it to the frame. The secret with the wing, because people are like, why would you have a wing then? Because if you looked at this from underneath, it's about that wide. It's got quite a terrible arrow shape. You want it to be super narrow. But the secret with the wing is actually the slot in the center. So the trick is, it's like letting your outhole off to the max on a boat. You can let it off on the wing by bending the wing and without stalling it. Because the gap in the middle is allowing the wind to reattach over the back without stalling. You know, you've had that moment, your outhole's gone off upwind and you're like, oh God, I'm going so slow, I'm going sideways. On the wing, you can get away with that. And it is kind of overlapping a head sail with a main and a jib in some sorts of ways. So that's one of the really cool things. And then at every single joint, you can adjust the shape of the wing. So some of the sailors have even decided to flop the top side of the wing over the wrong way, and it helps push the boat upright. So you see the split here in the wing. You can open this up and you can add another section to the wing. So in super, super light days. And then if we get maybe on Sunday, if the forecast is pushing 18 maybe, we might see them take out this 6 meter section here. They'll unbolt it from either side, take this out, and then take the other two elements and bolt it together, and it'll make an 18 meter wing. Whoever is the best sailing team should in theory come forward and win. But there's also the way you sail the boat. You're flying the boat now, you're also got this amazing wing, then you're steering the boat with all this technology, and then you're sailing in apparent wind, so you're always looking forwards. I think if they trim the boat correctly, the wind will never come outside of 15 degrees, even downwind. So the actual sailing wind that they experience, the apparent wind, will never come outside of 15 degrees on board the boat. So sailing on Etchell, dead downwind, it's crazy. There's a sixth position at the back, which is the strategist, Hannah Diamond. So Hannah Diamond's on board. Remember they mentioned about the iPad? They've also got telemetry on where the boat is on the race course. And then I think they're basically talking strategy to the rest of the boats. Then you've got this gentleman here. I don't know if anyone knows who this is. So obviously Ben Ainsley is the driver of the F50. So Ben is in charge of positioning the boats, but also he does fly the boats in manoeuvres. Or if they go down to a 4-person configuration, they may lose the flight controller for a bit of it. Next, you've got Ian Jensen, who's the wing trimmer. There's actually a 1-to-1 on the wing, so it's instant response. But they've also got kind of a computer system on the left-hand side here. Looks like a 1990s Ford Fiesta window up and down, but that actually controls the twist of the wing. And the wing isn't a flap, it doesn't flap like a sail, so you have to mechanically invert the wing. So that's a lot more complicated than it seems. Then this position here, you've got the flight controller. So can you see that odd looking device down there? They call it the pepper cracker as its nickname. So Luke Parkinson is the flight controller for this boat. He sits down in there, and you can see the telemetry there showing the ride height on both port and starboard. Obviously it's in a shed right now, so and they fly the boat normally off the one pepper cracker. Rolling it forwards lowers the boat, rolling it back lifts the boat up in the air. And then you've got the two grinders. So there's a mixture of grinders: Neil Hunter, Nick Hutton, Matt Gottrell, Shrek. And the forward-facing grinder also does the jib. So does the jib on board. And then the aft-facing grinder does nothing other than look for other boats and grinds to power the winch. Can you see the drive shaft through here, the Harken drive shaft? Purely that. So if you, I'll just give it a quick spin. So all the grinder's doing is spinning here, and see the winch is going now? So that's all they're doing, constantly. 2 speeds. And then the forward-facing grinder is doing the jib as well. And I think they can also invert the wing on the new tack. So a tack is quite a complex maneuver. 3 people run behind the wing, 3 people run in front of the wing. And depending on the maneuver, normally the wing trimmer goes over first, a grinder goes over first, and then the board goes down. and then typically everyone else runs across after them.